Chair.
It's a duster.
Just so everyone is aware, Chambers is unmuted.
Yeah, I haven't had that in a month.
Oh, wow.
Oh, hey. See you.
Okay.
5:15.
Good thing. They stop slapping.
I
Stop slapping.
always get worried when I see the book.
Printed them for old people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holy moly. I can read that without my glasses.
DeVito. Aren't you on this? Oh, no, you're.
No, I'm on
It's all
the
guys.
next one.
What? You're a guy?
Oh, except me.
Who
Who else is on?
You can ask
Oh,
Amanda.
Ben's gone.
If he's ready,
Yeah.
That's right
he's
here.
online.
Not out of the country.
He's doing the.
Oh, he might be. out of the country. I'm good. She's been-
Amanda, can you hear us?
Oh, Bill.
Yep, I can hear you.
Are you ready?
Yep, Chambers is ready and YouTube is on.
Okay. All right, we're gonna do a roll call. Legislator Daley,
Here.
Legislator Chair, Shay,
Here.
Legislator Strong,
Here.
and I think Legislator Vitale is excused. So we're gonna approve the minutes for December 6th, 2023. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Any discussion? Okay, any opposed? Okay, carried. So I'd like to invite up the Board of Elections.
Yes, right here.
If I could, sir, before we get too far involved. As a veteran, I find it disappointing.
I didn't say strong, I
No,
apologize.
you did.
I did.
Yeah, but as a veteran, I find it disappointing that we didn't take the time to say the pledge at the beginning of the meeting.
We could do it right now, I
If you
apologize.
would, I would stand up and lead the
All
pledge.
right, that's fine.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir.
All right. For the record, this is my first committee meeting, so, I mean,
Mr. Chairman, you have our report. Our new voting machines were delivered in December. Thank you for your support. And we're testing machines and we're going to be scheduling training shortly so that we're ready to go for the primary. So you have our report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I have just a quick question.
Sure.
What's the DUP regs?
Duplicate registration.
Oh, of course it is. Duplicate registrations. Okay, thank
You
you.
didn't know?
Anything else?
Regs. I'm like, okay,
I'll have you print that out in a few.
no problem.
any other questions? Okay. Sheila? She online?
I believe, yes.
I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, you
Yep.
can.
Okay. You have my report. Do you have any questions on that? And I do have one resolution.
I do not have any questions, any other, members have any legislators, have any questions?
Nope.
Yep. Okay, you want to do your resolution right now, Sheila?
It's GO1 and it's amending the Cayuga County cellular phone policy, which a group of us did work on with Sharina Andrasco. So we have made some changes to it. Both of them were attached, so you could look at the old versus the new. Do you have any questions on the policy?
Sorry.
Elaine has her hand up.
Other than the $15 to $20, are there any other significant changes, Sheila?
I don't believe so. Sharine, was there anything else that was really big changes? The
Not really.
reimbursement
The
form?
reimbursement rate.
Yeah.
from-
Yeah, and it basically was to designate an oversight to the cell phone distribution and the maintenance of them and the usage.
Could be IT.
Yes,
Okay,
yep, and to basically put it in the policy format.
okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, can I get a motion?
Move it. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Bye.
Any opposed? Carried. Chris Palermo with no updates. See anything, Chris? Anything else?
We don't have.
Anything? Okay. Brian? No update, but I do think you have a resolution, is that correct?
I do.
All right,
He did give us a report too.
I also was able to get the monthly on report done today. So each of you have that in front of you.
yes.
But after that, if there's any questions on that.
There might be a ways, but I can't read that fast.
I apologize you're
It's
getting
all right.
late, but I think, the certain circumstances we had this past week.
Yeah.
So Brian, you want to just briefly discuss your resolution?
Certainly. So I have resolution 124 GO2. Authorization to enter into a contract with a former deputy county clerk to provide assistance to the county clerk's office. Any questions on this?
Motion.
Can I get a motion?
I'll move it.
Second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed?
Well, you're gonna discuss, right?
Well, yeah, I just, so, it says former deputy clerk.
Yes.
We have a name for that. Or can't read it up.
She just retired, December 31st, along with Sue.
Retired.
Okay. Am I able to give names?
You can say who retired.
Yeah.
So, Don Wolf retired and Lisa Greenfield has been hired in her place. She started
Lisa.
Monday last week.
Okay.
Had orientation. So
And is it a part-time position?
this would be a contractor position. So it wouldn't be employed on Cayuga County payroll, but it would be a contractor
As needed.
as needed.
Very good.
Yep. This resolution, obviously, you're capping the amount that that person would be paid, and you're moving it from salary to your professional line to accomplish this. My only question, Brian, is why did you, and you can leave it, but why would you end it March 31st? Why would you tie yourself into an ending date? And you'd have to come back if,
Well, that discussion with the county attorney that I worked with,
Uh-huh.
wanted to put an end date in there. I don't foresee this taking,
You would talk to Fred.
it was, yes.
yeah, I mean, because basically the dollar amount's capped.
Right.
Could you ever, okay,
We mirrored this off of a contract that was done last year. So
Okay.
that's where we realized that from. But he felt comfortable putting an end date on it. If we had to extend it out, then I would have to come and ask.
yeah, which
But I honestly don't foresee it taking.
going
Yeah.
past March.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Did we vote on, did we close this out?
Name's good now.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, Tom.
Yes.
Wrong?
Good evening. You have my report. If you have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Yes.
Can I ask you a question on this report? I was looking at the enterprise resource planning solution, and I think, it seems like this will be a very helpful addition to the county in terms of starting us on the path of really kind of centralizing functions. Because you're talking about payroll,
Mhm.
finance, human resources, purchasing, fixed assets, because they're all in silos currently.
That is correct. Yes.
And you're looking at a solution that might bring them all together?
Yep. So we've kind of formed a small team
Uh-huh.
of us to go through different products, but I think our first phase right now is we're kind of in the information collecting and building phase. So we're working with departments we formulated a survey, right? And we distributed that across 12 of the departments. We're now collecting that information. We're going to regroup and kind of digest that and then take that back to various vendors to see what kind of, best fits us as the county.
And when we passed the 2024 budget, there was money allocated for software upgrade. I mean, this is something you foresee being able to do from your budget?
Potentially this year, but we really want to take our time to make sure that we got the right selection. And costs change all the time. So I think right now, this year is going to be spent more towards kind of researching and making sure that we, are selecting the correct product probably for 25 implementation.
And just, I guess I want to make sure I'm clear on this.
Yep.
We've been talking about centralizing functions and having small departments not do it, having it all centralized. This probably can't happen until this happens? Easily or?
Easily, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
it would be labor intensive until we get the right
There'd be a lot of
software.
extra processes and steps in place if we want to do something like that.
Oh, this is great then.
Yep.
Any other questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Kevin?
That was super quick. For those who don't know me, I'm Kevin Straub, Director of Veteran Services. I have some flyers here I want to hand out. I know we've got some new people and updated a few things. Okay, so.
I'll get one.
I have more. Please one. Okay. So you have my report, and I just want to highlight that we are looking for opportunities to connect with veterans, connect veterans to each other. One of the things we manage is the Joseph P. Dwyer Fund, which is a state fund. The intent is to reduce veteran suicide. Fortunately, here in Cayuga County, we've been doing pretty well. I was just on a conference call with a VA rep and several other organizations in the area about, building that camaraderie and helping veterans, especially as they transition from the military, and also just connect veterans to benefits, which is a lot of what we do. So if you have any events in your areas, like last year, I got to go to the Feet Harvest Festival down in King Ferry. And I was there for a couple hours and I was talking to veterans the whole time. So if you have anything where veterans are going to be in those groups, then we'd be happy to come out and visit or connect to veterans and connect them to benefits. So if there's any questions.
On your report, you talked about visiting the county jail. Is that a new initiative?
So I found out there were two veterans in the county jail, and it was right before Christmas. One of them I had interacted with in the past and found out that he was reincarcerated. And so I went out there and visited, worked through the sheriff. The other veteran I was going to visit, but he wasn't feeling well. And so they weren't going to bring him out, but I was able to, yeah. And I'm available for that sort of thing.
Wow.
And I've talked to them, and if they have veterans who are coming out and staying in the area, obviously we want to be connected to them as well to help them transition back in and make sure they're connected to benefits, that sort of thing.
Great.
So.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Anyway.
We have I have a resolution, GO3, and this resolution is to designate June 19th as Juneteenth Independence Day, recognize June 19th, 1865, the date in which news of the end of slavery reached the slave states in the Southwest. So this is to allow our chair to have, to start the negotiation. Under this as a holiday, which it is, so, I'd like to get a motion.
Move it.
And I need a second,
I'll second it for discussion.
second of the discussion. All right.
I read the resolution and I'm supportive of the resolution. I have some questions as to, is this, the way I read it, I understood it to be, they want to add this as another paid holiday for the county, correct? So we're going to go from 12 paid holidays to 13 paid holidays. Is that the intent?
If we have 12, yes.
We have 12.
I don't know, yeah,
Okay. So that's the intent, is to go from 12 to 13.
yeah.
Okay, that's just a question that I had.
Okay. Can we get you said you second it?
I was the one that seconded it, yeah.
Okay.
Is this the southwestern United States or?
Yeah, it would be mainly Texas.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Any opposed? That will be carried.
And I believe
We're all done, right?
So
You gotta say it.
You gotta say it.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
all in favor?
All in favor? All right.
Jonathan,
Kathy, yeah.
when do you want to start
He doesn't want to go
next
behind
meeting?
me.
6?
Yeah, a couple, o'clock's fine. 6 will work.
Yeah, 6 is. No, whatever time, 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah, okay.
I am going to.
But we're gonna watch.
Odd man out to the table, aren't I?
I can't say it on my glasses. Yeah, are you good?
I am nervous, that's not a joke.
Oh, is there,
We need another chair at the table.
I'll bring it over.
Oh, that's the new probation. It all, I'm putting this all together.
I can, you know what, I'll sit over there. Okay, I can sit over here in the corner of that. Thanks. That'll work out. Well.
I just wanted to introduce myself quick. I'm Brittany Finacci. Nice to meet you. Thank you for your email. I sent you one back though. Hopefully you got it.
No, I did.
Okay, good.
And-
Do you know her? Do you know her?
I do, and I left because she came on, I retired.
She said she came on right when you were
She came on-
retiring,
I
so.
came on. That's man. She was on.
Yeah.
A
A lot of students, it's a good thing. She doesn't want to be on the road anymore.
Yeah.
Well, you better watch out.
I got connections.
Nice to meet
I'm gonna
you.
stop by your office. I got.
That would be
connections.
great.
You can't buy me.
Why you don't buy me?
I don't believe that. Second.
I don't know, probably not.
Yeah, right.
Jonathan.
Probably.
You ain't spending over $100 bills.
My mom's and I said,
Probably not.
I don't know.
I will.
I could see the wheels. I was like, I was ready to leave.
I saw here. Right out of. I'm old, what, you gonna be 39?
At a mandatory homeland security.
Oh, God, you're a baby.
We're gonna call the meeting to order.
You love it. It'll be my kids.
Yeah, right.
So for those that don't know, my name is Jonathan Anna. We have Stephanie DeVito, Tom Winslow, Robert Shea, and Elaine Daly on our committee. So this is our first meeting of the new committee, so welcome. This time we have minutes to approve from the December 5th meeting.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moved. Our appointments, we have Jeffrey Dygert from Fire Advisory Board, and welcome.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? No? Okay, is Jeffrey here?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's invite Denise, Lisa for that one.
Good evening.
You saved you a seat.
Oh, I like that. I like to stay there.
You'd like to, talk about your report?
Yeah, so you have my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Amanda had my annual report, so you should also have that. You may not have gotten that till today.
Didn't
show me. Okay, yeah, she just uploaded that, so that's, you can look at that this week.
In Dropbox, which is now Teams or Microsoft Teams or
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I sent that to her on Saturday, so she
Okay.
she did that this morning, I think. Yeah, so you have my annual report. We can maybe talk more about that next month after you've had time to read through it. One thing I do want to highlight on the report are 4 awards that we gave out this year. And those, we've had staff meetings over the last couple of days. And this is one thing I highlight to staff because they're always intimidated by quality assurance. And this is kind of to make them understand that quality assurance is not done for punitive reasons, but for reasons like this, where this year we were able to give out our telecommunicator award. We gave out an award for a life-saving award for Patrick DeLuca for his efforts with a child that was drowning. And then we also gave out 2 awards for emergency medical dispatch. We had 2 employees who had 100% compliancy for the entire year, which was something we hadn't tracked in the past. So it was really, really cool to see that. And that's not an easy thing to accomplish. So that's awesome. So out of, I don't know, they had 40 some cases reviewed and all were 100% compliant. We actually had one more that wasn't on the report because technically I'll give it out this year is Maggie Spencer. So we did roughly 14,000 traffic stops this year, and 2,000 of them were generated by her. So it goes to show how busy that shift is. So kind of fun stuff that we're trying to like look at and really assess, and it's it shows them that there's some substance to the quality assurance program. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit about was just the supervisors, that our dispatch test is coming up next Saturday. We have one vacancy for dispatch, one for supervisor. And that test, so, you know, I don't expect to see the results till probably March. But for the first time in my career, we had 5 internal candidates apply for that position. And that was a result of you guys approving the raise that didn't happen. So, you know, that's something I'm gonna continue to push because it's important. And I've had a couple of them say, you know, now I don't want the position, but I'm pushing them to still take the test because, you know, I really wanna make sure that we move forward with that. And obviously it's not in your hands, but I think that's the only thing, those are the only things that I wanted to highlight, but if anybody has any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say, you know, with the events of the storm from last week, job well done to you and your staff for
Thanks.
what you went through there and all the call value that you handled and turned around and did your part to keep the county safe. So
Yeah, thank you. So I did send an email out to you guys. And I don't normally do that, but that was an event that we have never experienced. You know, I think they sent out a text at like maybe 8:15 that it was starting to get busy.
You opened the backup center?
We did, yeah. So I got on site about 8:45 and I said to him, it was like driving through an episode of Wizard of Oz. I mean, you didn't, trees were everywhere and you didn't know what was coming down where. And we had, within about 45 minutes, we had the backup center open and we had 11 people taking calls and we've never done that.
I was at city council when they made a mention too
Mhm.
of the wonderful work that 911 center did.
I'm telling you, and it was, I said, you know, I can't take any credit. I watched them do what they do and I didn't manage a thing. They really it was awesome. They really just did what they were trained to do and they were rock stars. You would have never known that they were as overwhelmed as they were by their demeanors. It was crazy.
Good at what they do.
They are, and that
And that
really
shows.
showed it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's-
really did.
that's the
you know.
test.
I would say the downtime is a silent killer, but those are the situations that really, that's where they shine.
For sure.
Mhm.
well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
just to
you.
say,
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Yeah, without the responders, I'm telling you that they were, those volunteers are out there. It was crazy.
It's scary.
It was, it really, really, I mean, there were a couple trees I drove under that I was like, you know, and I live in Weed Sports District and I'll tell you, they had everything cleaned up in 2 days and yeah, it was impressive.
Good mayor there.
They drove away.
They are. But there were-
I've heard that.
Contact for the mayor there?
It was sketchy. I mean, on the way home, I couldn't get through a road because there was so many trees down. It was just, it was scary.
Yeah.
Right.
They did. They didn't save any for Sea Line.
They don't like.
So now you gotta come back for Sea Line.
Yeah, they just didn't like me.
They told Sea Line, so now they know. They're on to
They did,
you.
they
Oh,
told
they're on to you.
Oh, we're in trouble.
Heidi has a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi.
It's just a comment for Denise. I wanted to thank you for the email that you sent out to all of us because really otherwise we wouldn't have known how that all pulled together and
Yeah.
how successful that was and had a chance to send our thanks and gratefulness. So thank you very much for.
Yeah, thank
thinking
you.
about it.
That's one of my goals is to do better I work in a communication center and I say sometimes our biggest weakness is communication.
Mhm.
Oh, well done. Thank you.
Denise, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hoskins.
Hi, Jonathan. We've talked on the phone. Hi, John. Good evening.
Hello.
Jonathan, I'd like to also introduce, I've got John Price. He's our senior supervising attorney for the office and he'll be attending most of the meetings also.
Thank you.
You want to review your report? Sure, I sent out the report. You have it in front of you. I tried to include the December as well as kind of an overview of the year end. I'll put together a much more comprehensive report probably for you next month to drill down into these numbers. You know, the year end are just raw numbers. As you can see, the cap arraignments that we had at centralized arraignment, how many were released, how many were held, how many were for the city of Auburn, how many were the town courts, and then the year-end assignments for the criminal cases in Auburn City Court, family court, county court, the appellate division, and parole appeals. But hopefully by next meeting, I'll have those drilled down and be much more comprehensive. This is kind of a summary.
It is, and I wanted to thank you for your email. I think it went to all the committee members as well, regarding the fund, ILS program.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
Yes, I like Denise, wanted to make a commitment to open up and get you as much information as you can. I know, I also have some reports on the bail reform, and we were one of the counties that was selected to have a study done on the bail reform. That report is completed. The people from Albany would like to come and do a presentation, and it would be at your convenience. So, we were singled out one of 7 counties.
You did explain to me, because I had a grin and I realized, oh my gosh, that really it accomplished what initially the intent was. People didn't languish in jail.
Correct.
Waiting without being unable to post bail.
Mhm.
It had a lot of other implications, that's for sure.
Right.
But as far as having unsentenced people waiting with, because they couldn't meet bail, it did accomplish that. Is that sort of how it?
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah. Yep.
Is that presentation through DLC or?
It would be through, actually, it's through University of Albany. They're one of their graduate study programs. They've done the study.
How many counties have they?
7. We are quite often called upon, as a rural county. They like to come here and look at our program and, kind of showcase Cayuga County as a rural program, what can be done. In that information that I did send out, I have more information that I will share with you as we go forward. I know there was questions on eligibility and how we determine eligibility, and that was sent out in terms of our hands kind of being tied with the standards that there's a presumption that you're going to be eligible for assigned counsel. In the old days, it was like, you got to prove it. And now it's kind of like, there's the presumption is that if you're going to apply, you're going to be eligible.
When we were talking about that, and I think Dave was still here then, even though there's presumptive eligibility, if you exercise your right to ask, you can ask for financial information.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You're presumed eligible, but doesn't preclude you from asking for some proof of financial eligibility.
They are presumed eligible, but they still need to fill out the application.
And if they attest to, I don't make any money, you have no way to determine. We were all like, oh my gosh, we don't want to be giving the services to people who financially could afford them, but.
We do audit. It's not very good. It's like 1 in 25 that.
Oh, so you're not looking at you're basically not asking for a certain set of information.
Oh, we do on the application, yes.
You do, the verification of that. Okay.
Yep.
That's
But you're not verifying that information.
Right.
It's 1 in 25.
Right, yeah. We ask for it, they supply it. We need to do a better job is when the case is 6 months down the road. Like right now, there's a lot of contractors that are on unemployment. But in the summer, they go back to building pole barns and whatever. But they've already been assigned an attorney. Now, part of that process is that you have to inform your attorney or the court that you're back to work, but a lot of them, I'm sure, don't report that. Right. If there's no questions on my report, I do have one resolution. It's the reappointment for my position, which is a part-time position. This probably will be my last year if this is approved. I'd like your consideration to approve this resolution, which would end a year from now.
Can I get a motion put on the table?
Make a motion.
Second, that's a shake. Any discussion?
So you haven't raised your rate.
No, it's the same rate. It's the same rate.
Yes, I know. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's all I have, Chairman.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And again, my office is in the second floor of the courthouse. The door is always open. I'd love to meet with any of you. Yeah. Whenever you got a free minute, I'm there most every day. So.
All right, appreciate the invitation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe that Dr. Duckett is here in the coroner's office.
No.
I know District Attorney Janaki is here. So.
Good evening, everyone. So I don't have any updates, but we did have our most recent hire start on the 8th. So we are now fully staffed, which is great. And we went back a couple decades and looked into it. And I think collectively now we have the most experience in the history of our DA's office. So that's exciting news. We started a new grand jury today, so they'll be serving 16-week term. So they just received training from county court and then our office today. And other than that, I too would like to welcome everyone to come to our office. The door is open. Wednesdays is a great day because that's our grand jury day. So you can kind of come in, meet everybody, see the grand jury room. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have court and county court. So that's also an interesting experience if anyone has some free time, if you want to pop into county court.
Any questions for you?
No question, but I think I'll be taking you up on a visit at some point.
That would be
Yeah, me
great.
too.
We'd love to have everyone in. So
I'll be down there on some Wednesdays.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know,
that would be
I'll see
great.
the office.
We'd love to have everyone. So,
Well, thank you.
well, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I see you back, Mr. Shirtloff.
Yes, flying in. How is everyone
How is
this
it
evening?
going today?
We're loving the state of New York so much right now. All right, so before we get going here, again, I want to welcome everybody, but for those of you who don't know, the gentleman who's been sitting next to me, that's Harry Sherman. He's my deputy director. Harry outlives me in the office. He's been here since March of 19, right?
3 weeks before COVID hit.
Yep, exactly. Before COVID hit, so Harry is definitely my number two and is a stand-in in many regards. So you have my report in front of you. I do want to touch on a couple of changes or a couple of highlights since then. I tried to get an answer to
Did I?
Mr. Anna, and Mr.
Do I have one?
Winslow. It was in the box,
Yeah.
so it might be.
No, you don't have any.
I go over it.
I already took stuff out of mine. I didn't see it.
I can run right down through it if you'd like me to.
Yeah, I
You can
didn't
take this
see it.
copy with you.
I read it, mine's in my.
Whichever,
Right back.
whichever is your preference.
Just your highlights.
I read it. You
Oh,
want, you
okay,
can.
sure.
I can read off.
All right.
Right, so I'm gonna talk about first the training tower. So we were moving forward, we were moving steadily with federal funding from Congresswoman Tenney's office for the training tower. We were looking at about a $1.3 million congressional earmark, which for all intents and purposes, last February's cost estimate would have covered almost all of the entire project with the exception of vehicle storage. We looked at removing vehicle storage because there was a septic line that hadn't been identified until we made it until August, and it would have taken our 8-bay building and shrunk it down to 3, which really doesn't work when we have 16 trailers that we're trying to house at any one given point. From July until 3 weeks ago, everything was completely hunky-dory, and then Congresswoman Tenney actually visited Auburn, and I was notified by the guy driving the Auburn City ladder truck that she was here and she was at the tower. I'd had very little notice ahead of time. I got over, was able to speak with her district manager, Mike Stottlemyre. If you haven't had the chance to meet him, he tries to make visits here, but also her legislative director, Mr. Carr. And for all intents and purposes right now, the funding is not being included in the federal budget. It was under Speaker McCarthy, and then we elected Speaker Johnson following Mr. McCarthy's ousting, who under the federal premise has basically come in and cut congressionally funded projects by about 30% nationwide. There is no saying that it isn't still buried in the federal budget right now because the federal budget hasn't been published. But because they haven't gotten a confirmation letter that it is in fact in there, all signs are indicating that it won't be included. At which point there is option B, which is we might be able to reach out. And if I can get an appropriations number, which as of last Thursday,
I still had not received. He said there's a chance it could be worked back in on the Senate side of negotiations. If the Republican side fails to pass it, then we might have a chance with Senator Schumer being the majority leader and being from New York and trying to reinstate it on the Senate side. I'm trying to at least get the appropriations number or title or what it's been referred to as at the congressional level in order to follow up in that pursuit. Following that, there has never been any decision made within the legislature to dedicate funding for this project or budget for it beyond the construction documents and the initial site survey for contaminants and then construction documents. The construction documents, I got an email this morning from Bergman. They're hoping to have those done by the 2nd of February. When they have those done on the 2nd of February, then we're able to work it through the RFP process to determine what we're looking at for potential total cost from a contractor, not the architect basing everything off of existing wages, existing practices. Between last, and this is on today, between last February and now, we were looking at about 1.3 to 1.4 after removing the $340,000 to $400,000 vehicle storage option. Total project wise, we were still looking at 1.7 to 1.8 is what I delivered last February. We're now looking at that 1.7 to 1.8 just for the classroom and the site improvements, even without the vehicle storage, just based on prevailing wage. We don't have anything budgeted beyond $123,000 for the completion of these construction documents. So where we go from here, there are a couple of alternatives to funding if we don't send that Hail Mary out through the Senate side. We can apply for state level grants. There's a brand new one that just came out called VFire, which is, I'm going to butcher this. It's the Volunteer Fire Infrastructure and Resource Equipment Funding Pool. I have a meeting on Thursday with Mr. Evans, our grant manager, to look at the possibility of putting that application in. There's the fact that we could apply for this again next year and see if we can get it worked through the federal budget next year. But beyond that, we're kind of at a standstill until we either work our way through the federal budget or see what direction this body wants to go in terms of the tower. Looking at that 1.7 to 1.9 just for the classroom and the site is a intimidating factor, to say the least, especially without there being budget for that. Going back to it for those who weren't here in last February and haven't been here through the process, essentially our training classroom at Quarry Road, which is our training tower, was feasibly condemned by the State Office of Fire Prevention and Control for classroom instruction. Changes in carcinogen exposure, changes in live fire practices. We can no longer hold classroom activities at our classroom out there. And when it was built in 2001, it was never intended to be a classroom. It was supposed to be a pole barn then. That was modified into a classroom. I took my firefighter one there. Starting at that point, we can no longer hold classes there. We've outsourced to local area fire departments to hold the classroom training. And then we've moved into skill sessions, but that causes an awful lot of logistical concerns, getting people back and forth between skill sessions in the morning or afternoon. So where we go from here is trying to see if we can't get that Hail Mary wedged in at the congressional or federal level. But then B, what are our alternatives when it comes back to whether or not the county wants to continue funding or pushing this project forward? We're looking at that $1.7 million bottom line, all right? But if we're looking at $1.7 million, where that comes from, I'm not going to point fingers at ARPA. I'm not going to point fingers at other things. I don't know where we would find that balance from as a current unbudgeted capital project. So there's still some things that are being worked on and worked out. There are some options that we can continue exploring, but we're kind of at a standstill in the water right now. I can also see where when the legislature last met in December, there was about a 1.9 to 2.1 questionable pool of ARPA money remaining, and not even that.
I think it's 1.4 if these other projects, the pumping state, if those things go through, there's not even 1.7 left.
And that's where I don't see where the county would be able to reasonably come up with the balance of funds with ARPA or otherwise to try and push this project forward. So that's where I'm saying looking at state or looking at federal is going to be our best bet in renewing this effort again in 2024 and onwards. I don't like it. I don't like the momentum that we've had behind this coming to a slow, but I also don't want to see other projects, pumping station or talking further about ambulances or anything else that's currently in the works be jeopardized by trying to push a project forward that otherwise the county does not have funding for.
Right.
I'm trying to be reasonable here. I want
Absolutely.
this tower
Yep.
built. We've got 800 firemen in this county that could continue to be getting trained there. However, I do not see how the county could come up with an additional 1.5 or 1.x number of dollars to try and make this project happen without that federal or state support. So by all intents, with Congresswoman Tenney's office, we were good to go for months. And then we found out solely by the coincidence that I had one of the guys on Auburn Fire tell me, hey, she's here at the tower right now in order for us to get over there.
What was
And
her reason for coming?
she was making a pass-through trip. She was
Oh.
visiting Auburn Station 1. I was made aware that she might be stopping in by the chief, but I never got a confirmation other than one of their lieutenants and one of the guys on the truck. So we rectified it. We made those commentary, but again, we were all good to go. We thought this was basically guaranteed up until just a couple weeks ago, and they only confirmed it last Thursday that they haven't had that appropriations confirmation come through. So not the information I want to bring to you on the first meeting of the year, but at the same time, I want to be as upfront as possible with
Appreciate
where
it.
we are. Carrying down through this, the rehab vehicle, we should be getting the chassis this month, so we should be able to move that forward. We should be seeing completion about 6 months after the chassis is delivered. I'm gonna come back to the certificate of need. We postponed our MCI planning that we were supposed to do last Thursday in the midst of everything that was going on.
The rehab vehicle is the one that goes to the scene and supports the workers at the scene that we've been waiting for?
Warming shelter.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Refreshments, supplies, et
Yeah,
cetera.
yeah.
Not an incident command bus, but basically if we catch like right now, we're going into sub 20-degree weather. You got firemen operating on
That's right.
multiple structure.
Support to the people
It's a support
supporting, yes,
vehicle.
yep.
Yep. So going down through it, I tried to give everybody an idea of how many dispatches my office went on last year. Bearing in mind that we're comprised of only 3 full-time people, and one of those is an admin that doesn't go out in the field. The other 14-ish people that I have are all part-time combination. It's a weird setup that exists. We went out 149 times last year through just our coordinators. This year alone, just since last week, I had to update it. We've been dispatched 15 times to 12 working or potential structure fires, and 8 of those were in county. We're very busy to start the year already. Fire investigators have been requested 4 different times. Rehab has been requested 4 different times. They usually show up on those confirmed working fires. And then special operations, that's the rescue truck that was previously pushed forward with a resolution last month. We had 8 different tree into house situations, all that were potential collapse situations during that wind shear. I can tell you right now, Harry and myself were on the road for a lot of hours Tuesday night and moving on. Talking again on response basis, out of all these calls, I really want to give a shout out to the central zone fire departments. That's Union Springs, Aurelius, Fleming 1 and 2. They're now 1. It's now Fleming Joint Fire District. And then Owasco Fire Department, they handled north of 200 calls dispatched and otherwise in just that Tuesday night and on. And I mean, I was helping West Nile still clear a tree at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I really want to give a shout out to those agencies. We've been covering a lot of ground. Again, you'll always see this. I'll try and cover trainings that we have offered and available for agencies within the county. And then a tier 3 is a training that's for newly elected officials. That's sponsored by Homeland Security, much like the training that I was at today. My question for this body is, when do you want it? I suggest it for, if you want it on a Wednesday in an afternoon before a JPS meeting, so you don't have to drive from Fairhaven or Sterling down here, we can try it, we can make that happen, but I wanted to open that to this body that it's about a 60-day window for requests. But you tell me if you want to do a tier 3 to go over Article 2B and other ones.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Wednesdays work okay for everybody?
Yeah, they happened at BOCES. Has that happened there before?
No idea
Oh,
where
okay.
it's been previously.
Right.
I've been to them at the Holiday
Bosse's.
Inn, they've been at the sheriff's office, they've been at fire
Do
stations.
you have any record if we've taken this training before?
It's still a good annual refresher.
I knew you were
Sometimes
gonna
that's a
say that.
checkbox for requirements for New York State Homeland
They
Security
already did it.
grant funding. So hey, the more people you have
Is it similar
covered.
to like incident command?
Yes, but it's going
OIC,
over Article 2B, declarations of states of emergency and so on. What are the powers of the county when you should consider things? So if you want it timed out before a JPS meeting in the next 60 days, I can aim for that and push for it.
Let's aim for the weather's a little nicer.
We can aim for,
Just spring.
March,
Just so
April,
the
May,
meetings
yeah.
are gonna be earlier,
Mhm.
next month, starting next month,
Yeah.
4 o'clock.
So if we have, I mean, even if there are 3 to 4 hour training based on how quickly the presenter works, we could time it out to be.
In-house like at noon or something.
We could have it downstairs in the EOC starting at noon and be tied up before then. If you're going to NISAC, they also offer one of these at NISAC.
And that's open to current legislators. I mean, both.
Fire chiefs, mayors, town
Wants to come
supervisors.
in.
We pushed one out last October. Was it October? We had 6 people sign up. Between department heads, town supervisors, mayors, current legislators, we had 6 people. And we need a minimum of 10, and we tried to do a morning and a noon and an afternoon session. And we couldn't even get all 6 shifted into one. And so
They canceled that, right?
yeah, you were one of the 6.
Yeah.
So
Let's aim for one in the spring. The weather's
Okay.
a little nicer.
We can try-
Not in April, that's like April parade and everything gets busy, but.
we can do March, April, 60 days, 90 days out. Let me see what Homeland Security comes up with and we'll try and keep it in line.
Maybe I'll bring a bus of people.
Whatever you gotta do, whatever you gotta do.
Tom knows a few people in the village.
Yeah, I don't know if you're putting it to like, you said mayors and such.
We,
Village elections are in March, so maybe if you went like April, you would incorporate a new
That's a good
group of
idea.
people coming in.
I wanted to throw it out to this
Yeah,
body.
let's do April.
You guys tell me. So
So that's after
we'll-
Easter, it's after, yeah, let's do April.
After an April parade, go someplace warm.
So that's on the training house of things. So just a lot of different things. If you guys ever have something come up, you have the fire department reach out to you, or you've got a local mayor reach out to you. We're the point of contact for Homeland Security. We're here for to try and set it up. Going back to it. All right, ambulance services. This is a whole lot to bring you up to speed on if you haven't been part of the legislature or tuning in for the last few months. But this ambulance issue is kind of a bear to try and understand. I'm still learning things all the time. So moving backwards, we had AMR, which was American Medical Response, close their doors at the end of the year. They gave us less than a 60-day formalized notice to at least make the county aware that they were going to be closing their open post. It took us several weeks to try and extrapolate data from them and then try to look at that data for how many calls were they running, where were they going, what were they looking at for terms of reimbursement. Which point all of that information was tried to tabulate the best we can, shared back to the legislature along with some of the options for us to try and pursue. There were a couple options we looked at, basically boiled down to 5. One was pay AMR to stay, which they told us in all ways, shapes, and forms, there was no number that was going to get them to stay. Contract with another agency to have them pick up their call volume directly, and either through a subsidy or otherwise, we would have still had to pursue what's called a MuniCon or municipal certificate. Contract with multiple agencies to try and cover base and knock down truly the CON walls. CONs are a hampering boundary that should have been left in the 1970s. But they still exist. We're running into issues with them 16 days into the new year already. Set up our own countywide system, either as fly car, transporting ambulance or otherwise, which we simply did not have the time to do in 60 days, nor do we have the funding to do. Wayne County went live with theirs and their total cost is creeping past $18 million for facilities, rigs, and employees. And they're expecting it's going to cost 4.8 million a year for the first year of operation, with only recoupment through billing of about 2.5. It's a losing game to get into the ambulance business in this day and age. Or the last option was do nothing and rely on mutual aid. Where we went from there is this legislature, the last legislature passed municipal certificate of need resolution. At least it would give us the ability to go out to contract, to have coverage, and knock down the walls of the certificate of needs that exist. So that way people aren't beholden to their current boundary lines and they can go where they're currently not allowed to accept as mutual aid. When they run as mutual aid, they can't bill to the same threshold that they do for being the predominant responder. Everything was heading in that track. Everything was sent to the regional EMS council. Here's what you got to do. We had the packet put together. We sent the packet in, got called by the state. At some point in time, and the state could not give me an answer, the rules of the game changed. And that was not communicated back through REMSCO or otherwise. Instead of having a CON in order to get contracts and contract for coverage, you need your contracts in place before they will authorize your CON. And I explained to the state section chief that that's cart in front of the horse. How do you contract somebody to something that doesn't exist yet? And in order to get those contracts in place, you also are required to establish a fee schedule, which is something that in my mind and to REMSCO and everybody else, that's the responsibility of the contracted agency. EPCR or patient care record support or authorization, which in my mind, again, we're not an ambulance. We have no need to write down patient care records.
But they're treating us like
Like an ambulance.
They're treating us like getting that CON means the county is going to operate an ambulance company.
You have to
Right,
do all the steps that are included to run an ambulance, even though you're contracting with somebody who already runs an
Right,
ambulance.
and that was initially what we weren't interested in becoming.
I
An
have no
ambulance.
desire to become an ambulance, but the steps required in order to be granted the CON are the same as though you were moving forward. So if we contracted with, and I'll use Fort Town First Aid, all right? We were to contract with Fort Town First Aid, we would have to have a fee schedule that can't be identical to theirs.
That we would pay them?
No,
Or
that
that
they
they-
would bill at rates of.
Oh, their fee
patients handled
schedule, insurance.
Beyond their muni con.
Okay, what would you, if Auburn went outside of the city of Auburn, what would you charge?
Basically.
And publish their rates?
Yep, and
Okay.
publish the rates. We would have to have EPCR access granted, have the contract signed with them. And they would actually have to have rig inspections done, even though they're already inspected, as Auburn City, as Fort Town, as all these other agencies. The state still would have to come back in and inspect them a second time in order to approve the county's Municon. None of that had previously been described, requested, or explained until after we pushed everything in.
So you'd have to go to each of these ambulance companies and say, you tell me what you're going to charge when you go here.
Or we set up a master rate for the entire county.
That they would
and we
have to
say,
agree to.
when you go to county calls beyond your existing areas, so if Auburn City is beholden to the Auburn city limits, if you go to Union Springs, this is what you're billing at for county rates. If Simvac ambulance.
They would become county rates, yeah.
Yes, and that's something that would all have to be negotiated by this body as well as put through in contracts, which is a 2-month process, given, and I'm not throwing shade at the attorney's office as much as the contract process is exhausting and they're incredibly short-staffed until DSS gets some people on board.
Is the option for municipalities optional? Say Simvac, or say somebody doesn't want to opt in, are they being
Yeah.
forced to opt in, or they say we don't want to participate, we want to stay the way we are, and that'd be okay?
If they don't want to, we're not going to hold them to. But the idea behind all of this was you have existing Municons that people can't go beyond the boundaries of. And a small example I'll give you is Union Springs. Union Springs had AMR and Fleming Ambulance. Fleming is separate from the fire department that covered the town of Springport. When AMR leaves, which they did on the first of the year, only Fleming holds the CON. Now, the fire chief of Springport can all day long go to 911 and say, Denise, can my box get changed to have the city of Auburn come out to me? You can do that. But at the same time, that's wrong and they could actually face a fine from the State Department of Health. Because they're operating beyond the boundaries of their municipal CON. Now Fleming, on the other hand, has said, we can't cover it. They put it in writing. We don't want to go over there. First right of refusal can go to the city. We're trying to handle our own, including Owasco and otherwise. We don't even require that you notify us when Auburn City's going over there, but we ask that you put a second on deck if the city can't come up with a rig. The state is still saying that you need this boundary removed in order for there to be efficiency in terms of response. And so we wouldn't hold anybody to the fire, but if all 13 entities in this county wanted to contract with the county, so that way the CON doesn't exist as a barrier, that was our intention, to basically make everybody be able to go from Fairhaven down to King Ferry.
But the CON process is now far more complicated than you ever envisioned.
Because the state
Right.
got involved and at some point
Right.
changed the process that it had to go through. And that's,
So what'd you say? Will we better think about it? I mean,
what you're looking at, so in 16 days, and we're gonna schedule a meeting with the ambulance agencies to kind of, after the 30-day mark, to see what really the fallout of AMR has been. But where this was going is, this was going to allow coverage to exist where it previously wouldn't, through mutual aid or otherwise. Where we sit on it, if we leave it to the local municipalities to try and fund, I don't see where the city is going to continue pushing their rigs into the county with no outside funding support or otherwise. I don't see
because
where.
they can't bill.
Because they can't bill, and just because there's already negative public impact. I've gotten phone calls saying, why are city ambulances responding outside of the city? Even though it's mutual aid, even though it's requested, even though that's all put in. I've had constituents call my landline.
Could be yes,
To
if I
say-
wanted an ambulance.
Right.
Right.
And so Jordan is covering certain areas. Simvac is covering additional areas. We've had great shifts, and I'll say there's been a true, and I don't use this often, there has been a true spirit of cooperation with the ambulances to pick up and cover where AMR pulled out. But what are our other remaining alternatives? Let the ambulances continue to go at their own. Try to step in and contract with one particular agency that still requires a CON. Set up our own, which I continue to advise against. I have no interest in setting up an ambulance. I don't, and beyond that, this is kind of the path to go down. It's just going to take more time and more effort that'll have to come before this body.
How stressed is the seeing response times taking longer because rigs are tied up? Is it?
I wouldn't have those numbers yet. We're 16 days into the new year.
You're not hearing much feedback? Or-
I'm hearing where you're getting troop coming into the city because the city has the bench depth of 4 ambulances. Now, AMR had 2 ambulances on during the day. So after 2 calls out to the county, then they would have to call mutual aid in. If the city has 4 units on and 3 of them are ready and available, then those 3 are going out into the county. And that's depriving the city of another agent or another unit, which now means Fleming, Troop, Jordan, Saves, somebody now has to come into the city, which reduces response times to city residents when they're on Market Street versus waiting on somebody coming in from one of those outside sources. So I don't have those numbers on me 16 days in, but that is some of the commentary that I'm getting is, where do we go from here? Because it won't be sustainable for the city for a year from now
Well, that's my question.
without any
Is it
support.
sustainable in the county as well? We're shifting ambulances around. So now you're taking rural areas and they're running over here. Now your response times lag somewhere else. And that's kind of where I was kind of.
And where the idea of this was going, and as I marketed it back, is if we subsidized through one way, shape, or form any of these ambulances, it would have allowed them to pick up operating costs or salary costs to put on additional shifts or drivers or medics as necessary. Losing AMR for 1.5 rigs isn't a death knell. It's the long-term effect of people being on the road more constantly. I give true credit to the Troop Fire Department ambulance that picked up a huge chunk that they already had CONs for, but they're volunteers. I don't know how long their volunteers can continue to get hammered out. Cayuga Fire Department picked up additional. So where we've kind of sparsed things out, people have good hearts, people have passion, but passion burns out too. So where we go from here, I'd like to say I could come back to this body with as much information and what's proposed, what's suggested as possible, including I've just got potential contracts from 2 of these agencies for what they would look for, but to put them into the contract hopper and work it through, I'm looking for feedback and where I can answer. I know I'm over my 5 minutes. By a long
I'm
shot.
telling you, I'm over here, my phone's getting hot.
30 words or less.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Yeah, it's just a ton of information to take. When we initially thought it was a simple process, it would come back in 2 days, we'd be approved, they could bill. This is a whole different.
I was spitting nails after that phone call and I had a lot of choice words for our section chief of the state bureau. We're very understanding with each other. Ed and I have a good working relationship, but a cart before the horse situation is truly what this has become. And I'm rather frustrated and perturbed with the state of New York. So ultimately, not good news for the first meeting that I'm sitting down with you at, but I want to bring as much forward as possible. I will tabulate, if I haven't already shared it with you, I will send you information on AMR and a lot of the data points that were shared with the last legislature, kind of where we are.
Because initially the paper covered it, they didn't have that much of an impact, they weren't doing that.
Yep.
But volume, but the book of business wasn't high and it should be able to be done.
And that's still how I feel.
Mhm.
However, it's the understanding within the state EMS department that I don't want to see any agency get fined for trying to help more people.
Mhm.
That's the bogus end of things.
So do you think that we should, is the only thing we're gonna do is still pursue getting CON? Or is we still looking at any kind of option B that may be out there?
Without a CON established, I don't know what your other options would be other than leave it up to complete local control and local process. Places can apply for certificate of operating territory expansions or COD expansions. But again, that's subject to a very rigorous review process that can take 6 or 8 months to work its way through.
They can do that without us.
They can do
Yes.
that without us, but it's gonna take time and that means you're gonna have coverage lack during the time.
Because they would be going for the same municipal CON that we are.
In
Same
essence,
manner.
or just certain territories. Maybe Auburn looks at the donut towns, but again,
So
that's
their
subject to.
process and what they would go through is the same as what the county's doing. So your
Publish their rates
time frame
to-
and everything is gonna be the same, whether the county does it or an individual municipality does it.
And that is gonna be subject to a whole lot more review and rebuttal because existing CON agencies can then have the chance to argue with those entities. We're a type A business. I mean, I think you've got some chiefs out there that would be aggressive, but wouldn't actually be capable of delivering what they're going after. Whereas this put the county squarely in the driver's seat for ensuring that citizens got ambulances when they needed them.
And I just don't seem, I don't know if another option is, yes, put it on the municipalities to get coverage for their municipality. And like where AMR pulled out, so now you have gaps in the county where AMR was the primary coverage. So now they pulled out and municipality A, you have to get coverage for your people. And I think that's where kind of your office is a service from the county to assist them in doing that.
And we worked through
Instead of
many of
taking the whole
those.
ball wax for the whole county and try and solve the whole county, every municipality's problem.
Be a help to those towns and villages.
We found that many of them were largely unaware of the situations or what was involved. We had some great conversations. I mean, I use Conquest as a success story where in the span of 2 separate meetings and a series of phone calls, we've had coverage established for Conquest, but that's where another set of CONs existed beyond AMR. And I think to try and work that through or negotiate it at the local level is going to take a series of meetings at each one of these 10 townships that were ultimately affected to find a long-term solution that I'm sorry, but I'm looking at the man hours that would be associated and I don't see where I can personally facilitate every single municipality, making sure they've stood on their own for this, as opposed to just removing.
Yeah,
the
I'm not
barriers
saying that your
exist.
office would have to basically hold their hand and do all the work for them. If the responsibility of each municipality, each township to provide the service for their town people. So you push back onto the town supervisors or town boards that
What are you gonna
you
do
wouldn't
about
have
it?
to hire a lawyer. and-
Yeah.
And we did that, right? We sent all that information out to chiefs to work as a conduit to their local town supervisors and managers. And a lot of them failed to do so in a timely manner until we finally pulled the ambulances in and said, it's gonna take you guys going to them and saying, you're capable of making this coverage and otherwise. It's been a lot of negotiations, but ultimately, I think a lot of town boards and supervisors were unaware of just how big a stake they had in it.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Riley, I just had a question about, I know there's a piece of legislation at the state to enable taxing jurisdictions to happen and local municipalities so they can set up an ambulance
Yes,
jurisdiction or
it's like
service.
AB 1910 or something.
So do you have any, what is your thought on that?
I think it's great if it passes, but I think this is the third time that it's been introduced. That's also the same bill that authorizes EMS to be labeled as an essential service, which they aren't currently.
Right.
And I think it's failed twice before. I believe that's Assemblywoman Kellis's bill, at least she's one of the co-sponsors. I think it's great if it passes, but again, you're gonna look at the long process of how are these towns gonna go out, put it to a bond or put it to a referendum to authorize this, creating new tax district that would then be authorized either for their township or combined townships as a shared services or otherwise. And will people go for it when they already have fire districts or fire protection districts on top of it? And I'm skeptical on the deployment of it, even if I think it's a very good intentioned piece of legislation.
I have a good idea on two townships that are very interested in pursuing this.
And I think we're thinking of the same two townships and I hope they become a success story. But until that passes, I'm skeptical.
Anyone else?
To be continued, huh?
I'll get you as much as I can as soon as I can get it too.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you guys. Not the lengthy one you wanted, but thank you.
That's okay, thank you.
Thank God Andy's not here.
Oh, I can hear him now. That counts as two presentations.
It's in Warren South, so things get easier for Mr. Thomas.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Give us an update.
Which I had the report in front of me, but
Here for you. There you go.
the so staffing wise, we just interviewed someone or interviewed a group of people. We had a great pool of people on our list, great candidates, and we were able to find one that fits the bill. I think she brings a lot to the table for us. So hopefully she will start on Monday, doing her orientation.
It's the probation officer one vacancy? Is it?
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Just working on kind of lessen the load for my staff. Really, there's a lot, and they really are working hard, but it's probably are a good 1 to 2 people short where we should be to do this job efficiently and effectively.
In terms of your caseload size, you mean your officer?
Caseloads, investigations, I know that no one wants to hear money, but I think that my staff is just overwhelmed, and I feel it, and I know it, and I'm doing a lot of things that most directors probably wouldn't be doing just because I just need to be able to take some of that work off my officers and my supervisors.
So that, I'm glad you mentioned that. So I asked, if you're not all aware, I asked Tyrone some questions and I think he actually brought the answers with you. Guys, let's talk about your staffing then and some of the questions that were brought up.
So the best practices for us would be, best practices for how many cases people should have. And that should be probably 50 cases without investigations.
Oh, boy, you're at 65 to 80?
Our people are on the low end 70 to 80, and they're writing anywhere from 5 to 7 investigations a month. Which honestly, you can't effectively supervise anyone. Like, probation work should be done in the field, and I don't know that this is happening because you they just can't do it and cover what needs to be done. Truthfully. So the state doesn't mandate any real numbers of how many people should be how many cases a person should have, but they just give us best practices, which is about 50 cases or so. We currently supervise about 628 criminal court cases, criminal court probationers, and 30 juvenile probation with diversion. And we're doing about 50 to 60 investigations a month, not including the PDIs for the juveniles, which those haven't been at least too bad as far as I can see. But 50, 60 investigations is a lot. And this is the county is long and it's long and it's big. And so there's just a lot in different courts and so forth. So we're doing the best that we can. I know that my supervisors are writing investigations. We're gonna have to send 3 people to training probably in February for 9 weeks. And so I'm gonna be writing investigations, plus the supervisors will be writing investigations to cover the load for what we have. When you're talking about an investigation,
This is a pre-sentence investigation that goes to the court?
a pre-sentence or a pre-plea. It's, I think that they've been asking for 12 weeks. But I think a lot of that's due to vacancies, not having enough and enough people to write. Plus we had, I think, an officer out. So they've been asking for 12 weeks. I don't really think you should need 12 weeks. I think you need probably 4 to 6 weeks to get investigations done, in and out. But again, with a lack of number of officers and caseload, it's a lot. And so, we're going to be working on that, trying to get that timeline down a little bit, but we'll do the best we can. And I think one of the questions was about bail reform. Bail reform really doesn't affect probation. It affects pretrial more than anything. I know the pretrial numbers are all over the place because, honestly, what's affecting probation? People just don't go to jail anymore. And, and it just, that just happens. And it's not just happening here, it's everywhere. And so, people are being given opportunities, and sometimes 2, 3 opportunities to try to be successful on probation. So I just kind of took down some of the just looking at I just grabbed Wayne County and looked at theirs. They supervise about 505 cases, criminal court probationers. They have 25 POs, 13 probation officers. 13 of them are probation officers, 7 seniors, 3 supervisors, a deputy director, and a director, not including clerical. Again, I'm not asking for.
No, how many do we have?
We have we currently have 6 probation officers. One of those is the give officer who only can do give cases. So, and then one that writes investigations, and then one that covers our juveniles. So, and then we have 3 seniors, 2 supervisors, and director, and then clerical. You know, like I said, I know we can't get the Wayne County numbers, but I think 2 more officers would help this office tremendously to efficiently do things and properly supervise people the way they should be. People shouldn't be seeing, in my opinion, people shouldn't be seeing you talk to on a phone, on the internet. They should be out there seeing people and reminding people that they're on probation. If we don't, then, you know, I guess everybody was young once your parents go away, and, you know.
Yeah. Point taken.
All your positions are full.
Correct.
Any vacancies right now? So you would require a create.
Correct.
And the 3 that are going to training are brand new?
One was hired in November, I think one in December, and then our new position.
So they're relatively new, they haven't gone to training yet, yeah.
And even with them, they're supervising probably 65 cases and probably shouldn't be.
Yep, yep.
Take some time to get up to speed.
Yeah.
This is cherry news.
So.
Happy New Year.
You know, like I said, it's unfortunately my predecessor, I mean, he delegated a lot. You know, I'm not going to talk bad about the guy that sat in the chair before me. All I'm going to say is that he delegated a lot, and people that suffered were the people that work for this county. And in order for, you know, I'm very much a working guy, and I'm not going to ask my people to do things that I won't do. And so I need to fight for them to make sure that we're giving them every opportunity to be successful and at least start enjoying your job again. And so that's kind of where I am with that. And I think I brought enough copies of this, and here are the numbers of probation clients or probationers for every county in New York. And doesn't tell where they're how many officers they have. It just tells you how many how many probationers we're seeing. Like I said, we're 628. You know, Monroe County, they probably supervise about 100 people, but again, they don't do much more than what the state requires. And again, like I said, I think that probation work is meant to be done in the field. So I just put what I basically just said and the answers to the questions.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
No more cats.
What? Oh, got it. Okay.
Yours.
All right.
One more.
Yeah, thank you.
And then
I was passing it down there.
Oh, it's okay. Everyone else first.
Any other questions I can?
Anybody have questions for Mr. Thomas?
Nope, just this resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Resolution on it.
So the resolution is just for the EHM or the HIT program.
Yep.
And this is really fully funded by the grant from the GIFT program. So we're just trying to fulfill the part of the grant that this was for.
I'll move it for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Any discussion? JP2?
I think I just want to be clear on this. last year we did, the probation department accepted a give grant of about $102,000, I think, right? Came into the budget as revenue. With that money, we hired 100% funded PO. And we are also paying these costs, or there was additional funds for this, or?
Part of the grant was the AHS, for the number of units that we ordered.
Yep.
Is what was contracted in the grant.
Okay, so you have already ordered what you think you're going to need, and I mean, this is all decided by the court, who gets an electronic monitoring. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay. All right, and then once the monitor's on, then you'll do the oversight.
Right, the particular company we're going through will do the monitoring for
Okay.
us.
All right. And this grant is gonna pay the PO and the cost of this electronic monitor.
Should.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I mean, that's because there's no limit on what we're
Right.
going to spend, but that was the hope that this 102,000 would be enough to cover for the year. This, as well as the salary and fringe of the probation officer.
Correct, and right now, so the numbers, I think we have one give case, we have some coming.
Yep.
And right now, I think we have maybe one person right now that will be on this once we get them all.
Okay, good. And you can't use this give probation officer for other functions?
Mm.
No, okay.
Any other questions? All in favor of JP3, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? JP3, someone? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Look forward to seeing you in the office.
Appreciate it. In our office, the doors are always open if anybody wants to stop in.
All right.
Thank you.
Where are you located?
We're on the third floor. We're in the first floor and the third floor of the courthouse.
Okay, thank you.
I see the sheriff is on video. Can you hear me, Sheriff?
I can. Good evening, everyone.
Hello there.
Good evening.
Thanks for letting me join you virtually. The only thing that I wanted to highlight, in addition to my report, you may notice we've had a considerable drop in the population in the jail, which is good news. I'm not really sure yet what's driving that, but looking back at January 16th of 2023, our population count was at 172. And today it's at 121, which is a significant difference. But over the last month and a half, we've really seen a decline in the number of unsentenced individuals. So hopefully that trend continues. And we're certainly trying to bring back some more board-ins to fill some of that space. Hopefully if we continue to see those kind of numbers, we can bring some more board-ins back in for the revenue side of things. So, but beyond that, I don't have any updates. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have anything before.
Brian, if the numbers stay low, this will help you basically because you have such gaps in your staff. I mean, you've got a resolution to fill 7, but will it help in any way with the census lower?
Not so much with
you have?
staff, because we really can't shut any areas down, and we have to man all of the areas within the jail. However, it significantly impacts our meal costs, our medical costs, prescription costs. And then if we can plug in some board-ins into those open spaces, whoever, whether it's the marshals or another sheriff's office that boards them in with us, is responsible for not only the board-in fees, but any medical and prescription costs. So that's where we'll see the biggest benefit. But we'd have to see really those numbers drop to 100 or below to even consider shutting down a pod or shutting down an area, which could help us, with the staffing situation, but we're not there yet at 121.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? All right, Sheriff, do you like to talk about JP3?
Sure. If I don't have the actual agenda in front of me, but I do have my report. I think JP3 is to authorize the creation and filling of one deputy sheriff's position.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, that's a position that I did seek to fund through the budget process, looking to create and fill a deputy sheriff's position to assign to our civil division to work full-time in serving civil process, as well as completing evictions that we're required to complete. And just a little bit of background here. The reason I sought to add patrol positions to our budget really came when we were having some challenges last summer, meeting the need to proactively provide enforcement. Primarily at the north end of the county. I know there was some frustration in the Sterling and Fairhaven area. I did attend the meeting there. They had a number of issues in the village last year with some homeless folks and some people committing larcenies and that type of quality of life issues were an issue over the summer. And I explained to some of the legislators that were with us last year that if we're going to be able to provide some of the proactive services that I think the people that we serve want, we're going to need additional resources to do that. So I think one of the ways that I can have a positive impact here is to create this position for the civil division, assign that person to civil, and then allow the people that are on the road to be out there, answering calls and proactively addressing these issues rather than oftentimes getting tied up with evictions or serving civil process throughout the county. And if you're not aware, typically we have 3 to 4 patrol cars on any given shift covering the whole county. Those deputies plus a supervisor. So it's a lot of ground to cover. It's 700 square miles trying to cover with 3 or 4 cars. And, if there's an expectation that we're going to be, answering those calls when our community members call, we got to have the cars out there to do that. And it's becoming more and more challenging. And so I'm looking to add that position, which is approved in the budget.
Any questions for the sheriff regarding JP3?
Need a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Can I get a motion to just put JP3 on the table?
Move it.
All right, for discussion.
I'll second the discussion.
Yes. I'm sorry.
I guess my initial question, Sheriff, was more about why would we put a road deputy on when the work assignment is in the custody division? And I know you and Jonathan had some conversations about the more flexibility of that versus a custody officer. A civil officer. Because the point would be your civil division is overburdened. You want additional help in your civil division, but yet you were looking at a road deputy. So I initially was thinking, why would that make sense? And I guess you had your rationale for that. The only concern I have, and I know this was put in the operating budget for 2024. You did get, I think, 3 additional positions added, but I personally am concerned about adding to the headcount in any department, given the budget situation that we have and the 7 million draw from the fund balance to budget to balance our operating budget. And my personal opinion, I'd like to hold up on filling this position until we have a little bit more time throughout the course of the year to see how things are coming. And if I'm not mistaken, I want to clarify that with you. You have 3 people signed up for the institution with the police academy. And even if this didn't pass, there is 2 deputies you're already down, and there'll be a fill behind for a promotion, and you would still have 3 deputies to send to that academy. Is that correct?
No, because the one resolution that you're going to address to fill what will become a vacant deputy sheriff sergeant's position, that position won't become vacant until February when the individual is actually off our books. So without passing this resolution to create and fill this position, I would only have the JP4 to fill 2 vacant deputy sheriff's position. And if I can comment in regards to this, we're seeing a lot more call volume. I know that there's a lot of pressure on the budget, but looking at everything that we're dealing with, I guess, we can hold off on this, but I have to answer the question, to the residents and our people that we serve, why we're not handling some of these things or why we don't have the resources to do that. So, I know it's very challenging, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that, our tax base isn't growing, but the strain on our public safety call volume and everything that we're dealing with today, and the length of time that we're on some of these more challenging calls is increasing. And there comes a point where we're gonna have to tell people that are calling that we're not, able to proactively deal with their traffic issues or these things that many people in our communities expect. And I deal with these issues in Sterling or, the extreme south. I mean, if we've got 3 cars on and 3 cars are tied up on something, people are just going to have to wait or not get that service. So, again, I'm very respectful and mindful of that, but I think that there's got to be an understanding that, we're going to have to start telling the people that we represent and serve that, there's certain things we just can't do. And I think there's an expectation when people call that they're going to have their request for law enforcement answered. And, if they're not, then I have to attend these meetings like I did last summer in Sterling. And I think Chairman Anna might have been there, but there's a lot of frustration with that.
And again, there has been a significant increase in road patrol made by the legislature. I think you've gone from 41 to 49. This would be the 50th position. I don't think we have intentionally tried to not address your staffing needs. How long has the 2 deputies been vacant that you're filling?
So just to back up, I'm not sure where the 50 number's coming from. That's not quite accurate, but we actually have 35 people currently in the patrol division. I can list those if you need those. But we have 35 people that are in the actual patrol divisions. I'm not sure, maybe you're including clerical staff or that type of.
But it could be, yes. Yeah.
But we have 35 people in the patrol division. As far as how long they've been vacant, one of the positions just became vacant within the last few months because we had a individual who graduated from the academy last year, did not pass his probation, so we were not able to keep him. So that position opened up. And then the other position has been open for some time just due to a recruiting challenge.
And certainly that would make your response time and your staffing issues a lot more difficult with those 2 vacant positions.
Stephanie, you had a question?
Yeah, Sheriff, you mentioned the influx of calls that are happening and incidences that are occurring. Would you be able to provide some sort of data that shows us, what those numbers look like and what those are?
Sure, I can break that down. And a lot of it too has to do with like the length of time that we're on some of these calls today versus where we were at, 5 years ago. Some of these mental health calls and things like that are very challenging. Transports with juveniles and raise the age that, it's really changed out there over the last few years with some of the criminal justice reforms. And certainly since the pandemic, but things are a lot different out there today. But I can break that down. I just will say that I do have 3 candidates right now looking at our list who would be ready to start the academy in February. If I don't get this one create and fill approved and we approve the other one for the 2, I could plug 2 into the academy, but I'm very concerned again with, how hard it is to recruit that, should I only be able to take 2 of these individuals, where does that other individual go when it's becoming more and more difficult we just don't have a robust list of people. So I'll give you that too, but I'm happy to provide some information.
Sheriff, while you're doing that, could we just move forward with this and then just amend the promotional one and just take the backfill language out? And then when you get the information, we can relook at it. Then you can at least have your 3 candidates.
We can do that. That would give me the 3. That would work.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's make, I'm gonna make a motion for JP3.
Yep.
That we table JP3.
No, what we're saying is we could pass
Oh, we
JP3.
passed JP3.
And then we would amend the other resolution with the backfill, and then he can get those 3 people to the
I
academy.
was misunderstanding you. All right.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
does anybody have any other questions or discussion for the sheriff? Anybody? Okay. As far as JP3, can I have a motion for JP3?
I'll make a motion to amend.
Oh,
No,
No, just has to
pass it.
JP3
Yes,
first.
okay. And then we'll amend.
Anyone in the second? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? JP3 carried. Let's move directly then. Can I skip to JP7?
You're the president.
Let's just go ahead and go right to it. Let's skip right to JP7, JP6, I'm sorry. The Sergeant Patrol backfill.
Yep.
Can I get a motion on JP6 to amend JP6?
Gotta put it on the table. I gotta put it on the table.
I'll move JP6. You need a second?
I'll second.
Now we need that discussion still, or do we need to make a motion? You can do it either way.
My motion was to just amend the resolution to remove the backfill language. Then the sheriff would have the opportunity to come back and still send the 3 candidates to the academy. And in any position that may result from a promotion, that's the
Yeah,
backfill
so we're
language.
just gonna- so
First
the
resolved.
So the sergeant is, the sheriff, be hereby authorized to direct to fill 1 patrol sergeant
Sergeant.
position, period.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second the amendment.
Discussion on the amendment. Thank you. It's my first. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed to the amendment? Amendment's okay.
Now you vote on the resolution.
As amended.
So,
Yeah.
First, any discussion as amended and then vote on.
Sheriff, we're gonna discuss about JP6, the amended JP6. I'm gonna motion to put it on the table.
I make a motion to put it on the table.
I'm gonna second. All right, any discussion on the amended JP6? All right, all in favor of the amended JP6?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Thanks a lot. Yes. Let's go,
No need.
JP4. All right, Sheriff, we're gonna talk about JP4.
Okay, yeah, again, JP4 is to fill the 2 vacant deputy sheriff positions that we have currently.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Second. Right. Any discussion? All in favor of JP4?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. All right, next one's JP5, custody vacancies.
I'll move it.
Second to the table. Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. All right, yep, we're gonna move on to JP7. Now I get a motion for JP7 on the
I make a motion.
motion on the table.
I'll second.
Bob seconds. Open for discussion.
Did you want me to comment?
Yeah, if you want to talk a little, tell us a little bit about.
Because we're
please.
very,
There's some
we're
confusion.
quite confused with,
Sure. This position has been vacant for a while. Unfortunately, we're renewing this to try to fill this. HR has been advertising for this position. I believe we've gotten 5 or 6 applications. I've looked at all but 2 of those so far. We haven't been able to find a qualified candidate or somebody to fill this position. I think, unfortunately, this is one of those positions. I haven't come back looking for a salary adjustment, but I know the legislature is considering looking at some of our non-bargaining positions and seeing, how the salaries line up with the work and the positions. This is going to be one of those positions. I haven't had the opportunity to work with Diane on this particular issue relative to salary, but we're going to continue to try to fill this position, but it's paid much less than even people that the position would be supervising. So it just needs to be adjusted, like many of the positions that have come before the legislature over the last year.
Discussion.
do we get a motion in a second?
We did.
Yeah.
Bob Shake. Any questions for the sheriff?
Yeah, I know Jonathan had talked to you too, Sheriff. Just when you look at and I think maybe you're onto something, when you look at the initial job description, it talks about the correction administrator is the highest ranking officer in the custody facility, and the incumbent is responsible to ensure all shifts, posts are properly staffed, and then it goes on. It is confusing because that seems to be, from a salary point of view, it's a little bit confusing. And then, from, the way the jail operates, I thought there was someone else really over operations. But, when you look at this job spec, it really looks like, I'm unclear. that you don't have two of them. That's,
So I can explain that. That isn't out. I explained this to Jonathan, that job description needs to be updated. I believe maybe 2009 that had an update, but it definitely needs to be updated. It is the time to do that if we're looking at the salary, but to try to break it down a little bit, we do have a captain that oversees the operational aspect of the jail, who is a member of the SEAC union. And then we also have the chief custody officer, who really provides the administrative oversight of the whole jail division. They partner on a lot of things, the way that I have run the sheriff's office since I took over. But really that position is the custody facility administrator is really in charge of policy oversight, budgetary oversight, discipline, internal investigations. And then the captain who's there is really providing more operational oversight. So there are some duties on that job description that have been filled by the captain, but there needs to be an update. But we really do need those two positions with the size of the operation and just everything that has to be done from an administrative aspect of things. It can't be done with one captain. There has to be administrative oversight, and there has to be a chief custody officer, especially for a facility our size.
Sheriff, it's my understanding that the chief deputy position is currently vacant as well for the chief of the custody division. Is that correct?
That is this position.
Oh, that's this position.
Corrections facility administrator is the chief administrative officer, who is not part of the union, but
that would be the chief of the jail then.
Correct. So this is the chief of the jail. That this position's been vacant, but I think with the salary, we're going to have a hard time attracting somebody to this position.
so I guess would it make sense to have the, since the position is vacant, this is the time, even ahead of the 24 non-bargaining, to look at the actual job spec, make the modifications to it and then see if the grade of this position changes at all. Because it's, as you say, this job description is clearly outdated, and it's hard to understand what this role is versus the other roles that you have in the facility. So maybe it does make sense.
It's the opportunity to fix the position,
Yeah.
right? Right.
I agree.
And table this now and then fix the position and revisit it.
Come back later.
For sure.
I think that would work. All right, so I'm gonna
I'm not opposed to that, only because we're gonna have a hard time filling it at the salary and with the job description. So I think the time is right as well to take a look at this and try to adjust the job description. But if you're not familiar with our jail operations, it is confusing to read that, and probably is time to tune that up. But I'll likely be coming back to you after we do that. If we're not looking at that salary study or adjusting it, I'm probably going to be coming back to you and saying, hey, I want to increase the salary for this position, after working with Diane, to try to attract the right candidate for what the job duties are.
Do you, in your mind, Sheriff, do you see that this position will then outrank the captain who's overseeing the jail, or they'd work more closely together?
They would work closely together, but ultimately the custody facility administrator would outrank the captain and oversee the jail operations.
And that's currently not at all what's happened in this position.
So the prior chief custody officer really did partner with the captain. But at the end of the day, he made the final decision if there was one to be made. But they had a pretty close working relationship and a close partnership. But I think there does need to be better delineation as far as who's in charge and who's responsible for what.
Yes.
Sheriff, as far as
issue.
as far as the organizational chart in this position, where would this, there's the sheriff, the undersheriff, where would this position then fall in the chain of command?
The answer is directly to the undersheriff.
Okay.
He or she.
Okay. So I'm gonna make a motion. I think it's a good idea we revisit this later. So I'm gonna make a motion that we table this.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. JP7 is tabled. I think that's the king sheriff, correct? Oh, yeah,
No.
No.
Sheriff.
8 and 9.
8 and 9.
Oh, 8 and 9.
Eight's to change the
Security
the comp
salary
plan.
per dollar an hour. All right, so can I get a motion for chief?
Does he know?
About, say. JPA, right? It's the raise the,
Sheriff,
oh, Sheriff, we're gonna move on to JPA
And 9.
and 9. We're gonna lump them together here. Or bind
Okay.
them.
bundle them.
Bundle them.
Yeah.
Bundle 8 and 9
Group them together. They're both salary increases for the,
They are. So for those of you that aren't,
Swamp Mandy down there to take, find it.
for those of you that aren't familiar, the special patrol officers that work in our court security division, that funding comes from the unified court system with the state. They fully reimburse us for their salaries. They would like to raise the officers' salaries at the courthouses $1 an hour. And it's my goal to keep the county office building security special patrol officers. It's the same title at the same rate for recruiting purposes. It's the same job. And then that'll give us a little bit of flexibility if needed when we run short on one side of the street or other to be able to bounce them back and forth. So that's my goal. There is some reimbursement for the county office building security through the state via DSS, but I know there's a formula and I never can explain it as well as our budget officer can. So they're not typically fully funded, but there is some reimbursement that can come for the security they provide via DSS. But I'm looking for $1 an hour for each.
Mr. Chairman, I motion to bundle. All right,
A second?
second, all right,
yep,
bundled. I don't think. I think-
all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, bundle. First thing, yeah, you know, better than you hear. We'll get better. All right. All right, any questions for the, can I motion to put 8 and 9 on the table? Right?
Nope, they were already passed.
We're done.
We're gonna say to the sheriff, we hope you're having fun somewhere.
I'm in Albany at the New York State Sheriff's training conference. So
Yeah, I didn't think it was that much fun. All right, a motion to adjourn?
Second. Let's get out of here. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.